only imagine what Euclid would, if we were doing this outside on a lovely night today in the adjacent parking lot, the number of just random people driving by or just witnessing were gathered for some reason. Something's happening, and and again, not to discount why we're in here, who knew what the weather would be like, but you can imagine how many more people just know, oh, somebody cares, right? And for all the people passing by right now, how much they don't note that, just because we're just simply not we're literally in a public space, but not in the public space, if that makes sense. Making sure we tell our history and really not only support people that have been here for years and hear their story, but make sure we realize that history is being made today. That the people that are involved and engaged, the work that Char's doing, that the things that are happening, like this is tomorrow's history happening in the present. That makes sense? I think I understood what I said. Making sure we add more stages and more public presentations. And then we sort of really talk about how do we engage on really weird issues, but using the arts as a piece here. What you see here is rain barrels that were painted. We all had our sewer bills increased because of this new impervious stormwater retention thing that's happened to all of us. Well, one way you can reduce that cost is by actually installing a rain barrel on your home. But typically they're big blue and white ugly barrels, right? Well, they don't have to be. They can be custom made pieces of art. And that allows us not only to say, hey, have some custom art in your yard for a couple $100s, but beyond that, it allows us an opportunity to talk about stormwater in the lake, which is obviously an important part, because we're Collinwood on the lake, in this part of the community. But while we're always kind of doing that art, it's just keeping people engaged on making sure we continue to improve space. It's an example of a house we took post foreclosure from the county land bank. We sold it for $8,500. It's something we've done 46 times now, where a lot of these homes are actually in surprisingly good shape, and some people are willing to do the sweat equity. This woman here actually, it's an artist that moved to our neighborhood from New Zealand. She invested about $32,000 in that house. Now she owns a $40,000 home. She bought it for 8, put 32 in, 8 plus 32, 40. So 40 grand into that house on a street where houses are typically running for about 70 to 80. So she's immediate build-in equty just because she was able to put in her own sweat and time and energy and wasn't scared of going to Home Depot and asking a few questions. But we also want to make sure that we continue to engage the youth. I'll hand this out because it has a little bit about us, but it's a book that we had about school engagement. So one of the things that we wanted to make sure of is we want to make sure that the future generations and families know to stay in the neighborhood and that there's quality school opportunities available. So many of you guys are probably familiar with the Transformation Alliance and their work around making sure that people know about quality schools. But the difficulty is sometimes that information becomes a little dry. So a lot of letters and addresses and maps. What we've done here is we've actually asked families that have selected quality schools in the neighborhood to tell their story about why they selected those schools, and then actually have the students draw a picture of their favorite part of the day. And we distribute these books. Intentionally to pre-K families, so as they're making choices for their future kindergartner, they may hear some of these stories, and maybe this resonates a little bit more strongly than just realizing the corner school that's failing. Maybe they might want to do a little bit more homework and have to deal with a little bit of drop-off and pick up to make sure their kid has a better chance at a quality education. Continue to take vacant lots where we know there isn't going to be future housing development, and make sure that we put in parks and other ways to make it so they're not just simply, one of the things that's really important about the psychology of you pass where you remember a house used to be and now it's just a vacant lot, is the fact that when you pass that, I gotta hurry up, got it, sorry. When you pass a vacant lot, that you realize that it could be something more. That it's, and by putting art or things like that in lots to improve and break that up. I'm just gonna hurry up. One of the things that we've been doing, we've been very happy to have a streetscape happen along Waterloo, which was a real tremendous thing that happened in the corridor. But what we really want to make sure is we didn't lose any businesses during that construction project. So what we had was we had artists engaged in it with the actual merchants. We gave them small grants to allow artists to have activities happen in their spaces opposite that construction. And we were the first, as far as we know, the first streetscape project in Cleveland that didn't lose a merchant during the construction process, and we think this had something to do with it. So a lot of, this is a program we do around arts and nutrition with kids. I'm going to fast forward because I know I'm over time. What we recently did is to continue that engagement and continue to give people a voice. So we actually, this past spring, had the neighborhood actually vote on what they wanted arts engagement to happen in the neighborhood going further. This is the parade that kicked off the voting. We had over 600 people vote in our actual poll, about a quarter of which were actually children or teenagers aged 15 to 18. The County Board of Elections actually made our ballot. So for a lot of people, this was their first time actually touching a real ballot. And now we're actually deploying those projects currently. So when you add up kind of all of these things, each of these art interventions, many of which are a $10,000 less investment, they add up to be quite a robust group of activities that occurs and that we're very proud of. We've had over 200 projects now occur. This is just some of them, but I want to make sure now we're going to get a little bit into the details of some numbers to bore you guys a little bit. How did we come to doing this? And how do we know what investments we should be making? So every single year, my organization surveys the neighborhood on what the neighborhood thinks about the same things every year. We've now been doing it for 5 years, and this is from the beginning to the end. So as you can tell, the neighborhood's improving its perception, and in a lot of ways, perception is reality, in a lot of significant ways over that period of time. And we're really, excited about, a variety of these improvements that you see up on the wall. These are all areas that we know we don't have to focus our energy on because of that survey work, right? We hear from the neighborhood, we ask the question, is it easy to walk around the neighborhood? And somewhere between 55 and 75% of people agree with that statement. We don't worry about that particular issue. But on the other hand, we are challenged by these particular things. So when you hear Northeast Shore's name or you happen to read something about some activity we're doing, particularly around arts engagement in the neighborhood, don't be surprised if at the core of it is one of these specific topics. When you see Northeast Shore's engaged around community health advocacy or doing an art project around community health, well, it's because when we ask the question, is this a healthy place to live? Only half the people say it is, even though it's the neighborhood that boasts Euclid Hospital, a Hospice of the Western Reserve, 2 nursing homes, a UH Health clinic, neons around the corner. I could keep going. It doesn't matter. People clearly don't feel like they have access to making sure that they feel like it's a healthy place to live. And the same thing with safety, right? Which is an ongoing concern everywhere. You look at the crime stats for one of the safest neighborhoods on the east side of Cleveland. Doesn't matter. 2/3 of people don't think it is, therefore it isn't. So, us doing a variety of arts and safety activities to make sure that we kind of change that perception for the better and keep tracking that with intentionality every single year to make sure that number continues to rise. So it can get, up into this area here, so that we don't have to, we won't focus on neighborhood safety as much. I think, nope. So one of the things that, one more point I wanted to make. So one of the things that we found that's been really important, when we ask those questions, we ask a variety of things. We ask where you live in the neighborhood, we ask what gender you are, we ask if you have kids, blah, blah, blah. And then we kind of look back at those various other questions and compare that to those answers, right? See if one side of the neighborhood feels one way more than the other side of the neighborhood, or that thing or that thing. The thing that's particularly shocking to me every year, every single year, is how people feel differently about the neighborhood, depending on if they answer the simple question, do you feel involved in the neighborhood? And as you can see here, hopefully you guys can read that, there's a good 30 or 40 percentage points difference in their perception of the neighborhood just by asking the question, do they feel involved? And one of the things I think is particularly